for Thursday, November 14th, 2020. I'm sorry. You want to do a roll call?
No, I just think it would be good to announce that Shannon is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I was going to. The mayor is unable to make it this evening, and Shannon is on a call in, so she'll be on the phone. So we will have, so 6 of us interviewing. And first of all, thank you very much for being here. What a crappy day, but hey, it's a good, always a good day, Richard. So unless you want to have an opening statement, we can just
Do you want to introduce yourself?
yeah.
My name is Robert Truria. I interviewed for the first open council position. I figured I'd drag you up the second time. Been in the community for almost 20 years, and I appreciate everyone taking their time tonight to interview me again and see whatever you want to ask.
Okay, well, thank you so much. We're gonna rotate through, so first person will be Emma.
So we're gonna change it up, so you don't have to answer the same things over and over again. I'm gonna talk to you about some current events that are happening and coming up. Allegheny County has currently been discussing a raise to property taxes for the 2025 tax year to offset some of the budget needs that they have. This tax increase is the first in many years, but without it, a lot of programs in the county would be completely eliminated. So I wanted to know what your thoughts on that situation are, and segueing into that, I'll give you both, and then you can kind of work together with them. Green Tree has a waste management contract that expires in 2027. A lot of other communities have faced large increases in their costs as they negotiated their new agreements, which has forced them to raise taxes on citizens. As a new council member in Green Tree Borough, what would your approach to this upcoming dilemma?
So the county's raising taxes. Previous administration never raised taxes, just kind of kicked the can down the road. So the current administration has to deal with it. So, it's inevitable. Taxes pay for everything that goes on around here. We saw Scott Township, I think last year, at 50% property tax raise, and the shenanigans that caused in our whole community. And if we don't get hands around what's going on here, we're gonna have this same crisis as we see with Allegheny County, we see with Scott. What programs would be cut if we don't raise taxes? The community here is an older community. A lot of people are on tighter budgets, they're on fixed incomes. So do we cut items that go, hey, these aren't popular, we just can't spend for it? Do we slowly raise taxes and go, okay, instead of a 50% jump, it's, the contract came in double what we were paying before, your options are either maybe we can raise taxes, or you're gonna pay monthly for garbage pickup. A lot of communities, people have a garbage tax or a garbage collection fee. It's inevitable, it's gonna happen. So it's like one or the other. And it's about making it palatable to everyone around here. I don't think anyone wants to see their taxes jump 50%. I think a lot of taxes already, then tell me, hey, it's gonna go up 50%. My wife works. That's gonna make us struggle. I can only imagine somebody who's retired on a fixed income, or even low income. I don't want to lose people in our community, especially the older citizens who live here. Because like my neighbor, he was the first person on the street. So he knows all the history of School Street. And it's awesome to hear him talk about, oh yeah, there used to be a school here, used to be closed, this street here, so they put in Foster Plaza, then they opened. It's amazing to hear that kind of history of the community. I don't want to lose that. So whatever we can do to make it easier for people, are there grants out there for maybe people who are over 65 who are struggling? Are there ways we can freeze property taxes and then offset it in some way others?
Thank you.
You're good. All right, second will be Shannon. You on that?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Nope.
Okay. Thank you so much for understanding that I am remote today. I recently had surgery and I have not been cleared to the doctor to return to work. Means I cannot come in person for council duties. So my question is about the council and the collective body and our reach of what our duties are. So as you know, council is a collective body and our role is really to oversee the policies and decisions that affect Green Tree Borough. This is an immense responsibility, but it is not all encompassing. What this means that sometimes council is presented with ideas, concerns, and opinions from community members that we cannot change or influence. Can you share with us what you know about the reach of council and its duties, and speak how you would respond to a request to make action for something that council cannot change?
Sure, so there are a lot of legal things council just can't do. As part of the Civil Service Commission, there are just certain things we do that legally, this is how it has to happen. So certainly like the reach of council is essentially the reach of the government. We can't just go, well, we can't block a business from coming in just because we don't like the business. There certainly be policies that limit certain kinds of businesses that can come in. I know something I think came up recently, maybe in the last year, was there was a tobacco shop off Noblestown Road. And they're essentially a head shop. And it was, well, there's not much we can do about it because they're considered a tobacco business. There are certain things, obviously, people don't want in the community that we can't really effectively block or eliminate. So it's important to take in what people want to hear from the community. They want to hear actions, what can be done, what can't be done. Sometimes it sucks to essentially have to say, yeah, I agree with you. I don't want to deal with that, but there's not much we can do. Our hands are tied. And I think the big thing is being able to communicate that effectively to people and not just say, no, nothing we can do. It's explaining the process and explaining like, look, there are certain laws or certain regulations, there are things we can't do. However, what we can do are something like this, something like that. You provide people other options, or at least making them feel like they're being heard. They're appreciative. It's like calling a credit card company and asking for something and being told, no, there's nothing we can do, and they just think up on it. That's not the pleasant experience you want to have. But to have somebody on the phone with you who goes, as empathetic to what's going on, goes, I understand your issue. I understand, here's what I can do to help. While it may not be the perfect answer for you, I'm giving you some sort of halfway there. And maybe we can come together for something else to help with giving you a little further along.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Ron.
Thank you. This is just an example, not necessarily Braintree's position. Let's, for example, we'll say the fire department needs a brand new aerial truck. $1.3 million approximately. And Braintree financially is doing very well. We easily have $1.3 million in cash in the bank. Do we finance that truck and pay all the interest rates? Or do we just pay the truck off with our money in the bank?
What's the interest rate?
I mean, 4.2%.
I mean, 4.2, you can easily, $1 million, you can get a better interest rate at some sort of high yield accounts. So you can pretty much almost offset financing that. As long as it's not some sort of adjustable rate that's going to consistently stay at that, I would finance that vehicle, pay the interest, because that 1.3 million could be used potentially elsewhere in the community, or even saved and utilize the interest to offset what you're paying on the truck. And if the rates continue to go down, like let's say it drops down to 3, 2.5, we end up like we were maybe a few years ago, you could refinance that truck down to a lower rate instead of now essentially going, well, I put away that 1.3 million. That's what I would do. That's my financial idea on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks very much. David? You're up.
Yeah, so thanks for coming back, Robert. Especially after not being selected the first time. I appreciate the courage and the will and the drive to come back, so.
Please get rid of
give you a lot
that.
of credit for that. I don't have a specific question, because I asked all my questions last time. I think you're a highly qualified candidate. So I'll just turn it back on you. What else do you think council should know to make an informed decision this time about you?
Sure. One of the things I touched on last time is that the community was always, how do you attract younger people into the area? I took it to heart over the last month, really looking at what are other communities doing that are bringing in people into the area and making people want to stay. I'm not sure if anyone saw over the summer, St. Simon and Jude every Friday was doing a food truck roundup that was insanely packed. They had 4 or 5 different vendors there. I passed by, they had a big bonfire going on. Why couldn't we do something like that, say Tuesday nights in Green Tree Park? I know we get a food truck during the farmer's market. But if we did some sort of food truck roundup on like a Tuesday or Monday night, coincide that with kids already having baseball games up there. It's a nice way to flex off the nice, beautiful park we have there. It's a great way to show people, hey, it's not just a walking park. We have food trucks here. There's a lot of sports teams that come up here and play. We have a deck hockey, sort of like street hockey, deck hockey, rink up here that I've never really seen anyone use. It'd be great to like, hey, you can come up here, play street hockey in the middle of summer. Also on top of that, you know, we have a few other parklets. You know, I'm not sure how many people really know about the nature preserve that's in Green Tree. I read about it, I've walked through it a few times, but it's a great thing, especially, you know, at the height of COVID, everyone's like finding ways to get outside. And so just showing off what we have and what we offer that other communities around us don't have. One thing that I noticed also was our light up night coincides with the city of Pittsburgh. I know it was always the first Saturday in December. It just now seems like how big of an event is it gonna be if you're gonna go, you wanna go downtown Pittsburgh? We're gonna stop at Green Tree. Everyone's gonna drive past and go downtown because there's a plethora of things to do down there. Instead of being able to go, hey, we're the only light up night going downtown, we have something at the Borough building and at the park. We have a big event going on where we have a bonfire, we have apple cider for kids, hot chocolate. We have a few vendors here, local vendors who are giving away things. I know we have people here in the community do our beehives. People who do woodworking. It'll be great to show what members of our community also bring to the area. So there's just some of the things I was thinking about since last month. I can share those.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Jen?
So recently, there's been a lot of talk about the borough residents not receiving information, not getting complete information, lack of transparency. What suggestions do you have for how the council and the borough government as a whole can reach our residents, knowing that we do have an elderly population, we have younger people, not everybody is on social media. What, in your opinion, is the best way to encompass all of that and communicate ways of things we're doing, things in the community to reach the most amount of people affected?
I know one of the big complaints people have with our new website is there used to be a weekly Friday blast of, hey, here's everything going on in the community for the upcoming week. And I know a lot of people were upset of, hey, my phone doesn't do apps, it doesn't do, you know, it's essentially a dumb phone, but it was nice to have an email that gave me all the information, and now I just get an alert from the app. So I think reinstituting some sort of email listing to where it's, hey, here's what's going on in the community. Here's where you can submit things. Even a monthly mailer, I know there's a Green Tree Times newsletter. Maybe making a little insert in there that's a different color that stands out. I know there's a little insert in there usually have people in the community do babysitting, grass cutting, stuff like that. Maybe a little insert of like, hey, here's what the council is doing for the next month. Here's some scheduled meetings. If you want to hear your voice heard, here's a number, here's an email address. Give us a call, shoot us an email. Let us know. Our older community, while they're older, everyone pretty much has embraced technology to an extent, just because nowadays you kind of need to. My mother-in-law is retired and she can use an iPhone. A lot of older people can. And it's a great way to at least be able to give some information to people, even if it's a phone call. I think we all got inundated with political phone calls in the last month and a half. Even if it's just a phone call of, hey, if you want to hear what's going on in the Green Tree community, press 1, and it's like a 1-minute recording. So there's a few ideas there.
Thanks. And I know we hit you with a lot of questions, a lot of things, but all I have is that we have 6 committees: infrastructure, finance, safety, recreation, planning, public facilities. Which ones have you had, which topics have you had exposure to in your working career, knowledge of, you think you can bring any expertise, or what do you think you would be interested in, out of the 6 committees? Just a general knowledge of what you have, learned and been exposed.
Sure, so my role is IT security, so none of those are really into my wheelhouse, I'm just a nerd. But
But they all relate.
they all relate. I do project management. I work with a ton of clients within our firm, external, internal. I deal with a lot of people who are pretty hot-headed, and don't take no for an answer. So all of those kind of tie in, because they all relate to some sort of project, whether it's the infrastructure. Somebody wants their road paved, here's what the budget for that is. The parks that are going on, everyone wants money towards parks, everyone wants their park to look the best. And utilize our parks, utilize our infrastructure. Any of those, I'd love to serve on. Anything that helps people be connected, anything that helps people get around in our community. You look at Mount Lebanon, it's a walking community, there's sidewalks everywhere. And even last time I said, it's a shame, so many of our side streets just don't have sidewalks, and I feel unsafe to walk my own street because I'm afraid I'm gonna get plowed by a car in the middle of the night, walking my dog that I don't really walk him around here. It's a small little black dog. I've almost been hit multiple times just taking out my garbage cans. Actually, over Christmas last year, somebody took out my garbage cans. So, anything we could do to make the community easier for people to get around with, I'm all for it.
Okay. Do you have any, exposure to something like public safety, anything with,
I'm on the Civil Service Commission, so I do a lot of hiring pretty few officers here. My cousin is an officer from Lebanon Police. So I have exposure to that. My work does involve me working with a lot of 3-letter agencies that come visit me. But probably bigger issues if that's happening around here. So I have exposure to that.
good, right? Thank you.
Excuse me, everyone, I'm sorry, I have a follow-up question.
Sure,
I'll only go if no one else there
well,
does.
we've done our 6 counts of
Okay.
people, so we're up for any other additional things.
Yeah, thank you so much. In our last interview and tonight, you mentioned some really great ideas. And you have certainly a lot of fresh ideas of what you would like to see in our community. Last time I asked you about how we would fund these. But tonight, my question was about, council's purview and what we are in charge of. And some of the ideas and stuff that you came through, my follow-up has to do with pertaining to the reach of council. Council does not operate the daily functions of the borough. So this does include any events, any communication, any special celebrations. We're here to support and make sure that our borough administration as a whole, all of the bodies, can make sure those things happen, but we don't decide what those things are, and we don't run our own. So with all of your ideas, what do you believe should be the borough's #1 priority? And what ideas do you have to help make room in our wonderful staff to oversee new ideas? And what would you want to see sunsetted, or how would you expect our borough staff to decide what might need to be sunsetted to make room for something new?
I'm trying to wrap my head around your questions. It's one question with about 18 different parts. So of all the ideas I brought up, first I want to say council is the voice of the community. So if people have gripes or concerns of what's going on, they are who everyone gets in touch with first. While I may have an issue with something, I may email Dave, right, and go, hey, Dave, you're the first name that came up. This is what's going on. Obviously, 99% of it's probably not something he handle with. However, Dave would know, hey, this is an infrastructure issue. Let me pass this to this individual, like a street lights out. I don't know who to contact. I contact UK Light, who may tell me to pound sand. So essentially, I'd email council and go, hey, there's a light out on my street. I don't expect Dave or R to Ron to get on a ladder truck and replace the bulb, I essentially know they wouldn't know who to get in contact with. So yes, I understand a lot of my ideas are not within the purview of council. However, council acts on behalf of the community in the best interest of the community. So of all my ideas, what council has the effect on would be essentially the view of the community. What are people seeing when they see Green Tree? Over the past 6 months, I mean, we can be blunt and go, what everyone has seen in the community is essentially the fight over a pool. And I'm sure everyone just rolled their eyes over that. However, when you ask anyone, what has anyone seen about Green Tree in the past 6 months, it's, hey, isn't that the place that everyone's fighting about a pool? Is that what we want our community to be seen by everyone externally? I doubt it. But that is within the view of council. What are we doing to make the community look better? That's essentially what council's job is to make the community look good and move forward and function. As far as what ideas we would sunset, my question back to you is, what is our least utilized function in a community we're spending a lot of money on? What would that be? We have a lot of functions. Are they being attended? What do they cost? What are we spending on it? Where are we financially with things? I don't have access to a lot of that, but I'm sure somebody would know all the events we have throughout the year. What is attendance like? What's the feedback from these events? And can they be removed if nobody's using them? Borough funds are being utilized for it. Do we just go with something else and go, sorry, this just doesn't occur anymore? We have a lack of interest and lose funds elsewhere. Trying to remember what the other parts of your question were.
Yeah, yes, I mean, I think the other part of it would be, where do you see, council in supporting the staff who have to make those decisions? They're very often on the front lines. But I think you can answer that a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind somebody yelling at me. I deal with it every day at work, and my wife yells at me all the time too for stupid stuff I do. That's the job of council, is to essentially be the shield of everyone behind doing the work. Judy, I'm sure, gets a litany of phone calls and emails every day, people yelling and complaining to her. However, if somebody complains to me about Judy, it's my job to take a look at what's going on, assess the situation and go, is this an issue? Pass it to Judy as long as it can. And if it's something where somebody's coming to her and being rude or, trying to get something out of her they shouldn't, as council, where can I step in? What can I utilize? What can I volunteer to take off somebody's plate? What to do? There are a lot of committees that are going on. Is it something as simple as, hey, we have a committee for that. Here's where you need to go with it, rather than going to Judy. You meet every third Thursday of the month. Feel free to come with your question or email it to somebody and we can put it on the agenda for that meeting. So it's about helping those who are doing the work for the community be as efficient as possible. We spend a lot of money to get things done around here, and rather somebody spend their time making the community better than having to respond to the 18 email of the day of, hey, what do I do for X, Y, Z?
Thanks. Anybody else have any other questions, follow-ups?
Yeah.
Robert, any updates, any questions, any more questions to ask? Anything you would like to add?
I guess my question is, what are you looking for this person in council? What skill do you think is the most important skill for the role?
I just think everybody has their own, thoughts of what set of attributes would make the most sense. I would just be, could be a number of things: interest, dedication, experience, integrity. There's a whole bunch of things. At least I think it's kind of weigh everything. I don't know what everyone else is thinking, but I don't know if it's one particular thing. But anybody else can certainly share their thoughts.
I think I mentioned this last time too, is just listening to the constituents, making decisions based on what you hear.
I think it's the most important thing. The whole reason I got into this is just because of the transparency. That's why over, I think a year ago, sign up for the civil service commissions. It's the, well, I want to get back to my feet, and plus I want to see what goes on behind the scenes essentially. And then when these positions opened up, it was the, I want to try to give as much transparency of what goes on, because there are a lot of people who just through ignorance have no idea what goes on. So, you know, I've always tried to be the person to go, this is what's happening in the area, involve yourself, make sure you're involved in your community, because what you invest in your community is what you get out of it. If you're willing to put in nothing, you're gonna get nothing out of it. And I think the more we as an individual or everyone around here invest in this community, the better the place will be. So,
I would
appreciate
s-
everyone's time.
And I would say what I'm looking for, I mean, I think it's fair that everybody gets to say, I'm looking for someone who is going to use their experience and look at the information they're provided to make decisions not only for one small sector, but to look at the whole of the community. As you said, we have a very diverse population, age, ethnicity, gender, all of it, and a very diverse set of needs. And so it is difficult sometimes to make decisions that will meet everyone's needs or make everyone happy. But you need to look at the information you have and also not the short term, but the long term of those decisions and think about how that will affect all of those populations. So having that kind of analytical thinking, open-mindedness, and broader perspective is what I'm looking for.
No, I agree with that. You know, we have a very diverse community around here. It's a shame we don't highlight a lot of that. You know, I grew up in an immigrant household, so I was a kid at school that had the interesting lunch all the time. Everyone's like, what do you have? I saw in the West End, there's a Booties restaurant now because of all the population that's moved in over the last like 10, 15 years. So it'd be amazing. We had a few restaurants that opened up that were ethnically diverse, showcase some of the additional people who live in our community. It's not just, hey, here's a bar pub, or here's just like a bowling alley or something like that. It's, hey, we have a Nepalese restaurant, or you know, we have a Uzbek restaurant. That'd be amazing to see around here.
So,
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Um, there's not much that I could add to this other than what everyone has already, other than to echo what everyone said. I think, you know, we all, come to council with different, perspectives, and I'm certainly looking for an additional perspective there, but I think it is someone who, can make decisions, understanding they're representing a large population of people with many diverse viewpoints. I'm certainly looking for someone who can, have the perseverance to keep going. And really all of the other stuff that everyone said, there's just, I don't think, you know, in my time on council, I don't think there's just one thing that, makes someone, good. I think, you know, everyone brings something to the table. And I'm just looking to make sure that we can continue to move forward for our community.
I appreciate the canvas.
anybody else?
Thank you so
That is
much.
it. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming back.
That's fair.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Robert.
I think our next. I'll see.
Good evening.
Hello, Robert.
Uh,
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys too. My name's Robert McGinley. I live over on Green Lawn at 1123. I've been there for about 20 years. I've been a member of this community. Raised my family here. My daughter just graduated from Keith and Oaks and starting her life, and my son is still enrolled at Aiken, and I absolutely enjoy living in this community, and that's why I'm here tonight.
You in relation to the McGinleys who were part of the city
Thank you.
back in the day?
And that is a distant one, the ones that go with the Roonies and back to the Steelers. That's on my dad's side, but they're not direct relatives. There's a couple of McGinley families in the area. I grew up in Mount Lebanon, and there's two major McGinley families in that area. My dad's one, he worked for PNC, and the other one was a judge, and I went to school with one of his daughters, so they always thought it was my sister, so.
Just thought we could get pictures off of
Yeah.
Well, okay, we'll start off with some questions for you. Shannon?
Yeah, thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm sorry I'm not there in person. I had surgery last week and I have not been cleared to return for work, so therefore I cannot come to this work meeting in person. So, my question tonight is about council as a collective body. It really is council's role to oversee the policies and decisions that affect Braintree Borough. It is an immense responsibility, but it is not all encompassing and does have its limits. What that means that sometimes council is presented with issues, concerns, opinions, all sorts of things, from community members that we cannot change or influence. Can you share with us what you know about the reach of council and its duties, and speak to how you would respond to a request to make an action for something that you cannot change?
Well, my understanding of council is it's a representative of the community in a whole. And as a collective group, we work together to try to find solutions and possible alternatives to handling situations that may arise within the community or within the area in general. And the whole point of discussing it and working to try to finalize everything to make a clear presentation to the community for meetings, so the community could overall have their say and thing. You're kind of a pawn in the whole game where you're working the in-between field between the mayor and the community and the state and all the other local regions, Allegheny County, all that stuff like that. We have certain standards that you have to attend, like when and our job would be to represent our communities and try to come to a collective decision to better our community and help keep us moving in a progressive way.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry. It's hard for me to click the mute really quickly, but thank you very much.
Okay, good. We'll move on. Ron?
Yes, my question tonight is a scenario in which, if the Braintree Fire Department needed a new aerial truck, the new truck costs approximately $1.3 million. As a council person, would you, and also, by the way, Braintree's doing very well financially, so we do have $1.3 million easily in our cash reserve. As a council person, would you finance the truck at, say, an interest rate of 4.2%? Or would you pay it off immediately? What would you do and why?
Well, the first thing I'd have to look at is what is the lifespan of a truck? I mean, we have some very nice trucks and we also have a couple of plastics that we use for Santa rides and stuff of that thing. So we'd have to weigh the benefits to this truck and how long it goes. Personally, I lease all my vehicles so that you're not having that loss of capital. So, it would be something that I would say that you would kind of like pay it over a period of time. Because you're going to get maybe 10 years out of that truck if it lasts well, depending on technology and the needs of the borough. Because like some of the newer trucks, they have a lot of features for rescue and stuff, and we have to respond to accidents on 376. So having, a good skilled fire department, and if they have a tool to better do their job and actually help people and save lives, I would consider moving forward with the decision to get the new truck. But when it comes down to paying it once or paying interest over time, it really depends on the value of the truck. it's how long it's going to last the community. If it's something that's gonna go outdated in 2 years, I'd be like, I'd like, well, you're gonna almost need to buy it and then try to resell it to another community down the road. Or if there's something that you could lease trucks, I don't know if that's such a thing, that's what most major companies do. They lease their vehicles, and then when they get outdated, they replenish them with newer vehicles. So you would see what the cost of leasing that vehicle is over, purchase that vehicle, having to maintain that vehicle, and then eventually getting rid of that vehicle down the road, because I don't know what the aftermarket is on used fire trucks either. So there's a lot of different factors that need to be considered when you're making a decision, a capital decision like that, and that's what the council would have to discuss before we went ahead with anything.
Thank you.
Thank you. David?
Yeah, thanks, Robert, for coming tonight and putting forth your application for the council vacancy position.
Thank you.
So I was looking at your resume, you have a pretty diverse background. Could you talk about your career history, and then I have some specific questions, because it looked like you were in the food industry and then went to school, and now you're in the medical field.
Right, I'm on my 4th career path, but I've been doing this one for 20 years. I am a medical professional, so I understand the recovery from surgery. Shannon's going through right now, because that's what I do. I work in the cardiac thoracic ICU down at Presbyterian Hospital. I've been there for roughly 20 years. That was my 3rd professional career after I graduated from college. I grew up in Mount Lebanon. I eventually went off to Ohio State. I attended Ohio State. I graduated in 1998 with Eddie George. So it's a very good year to be in college in Ohio State. I went off to work at the Mall of America in Minneapolis as I was the food supervisor. I was in charge of 23 fast food venues and 3 full service restaurants up there. And that was where my career path was going in the hospitality route. And then things happened, cost of living changed, I got different offers. I moved in. The next step was I moved from working in a food court to managing Panera Bread stores, where I eventually opened up the brand new location in Apple Valley, Minnesota as the general manager. I worked there for 3 years as general manager there, where then they assigned me to another store, and I had 2 stores, and it was just consuming my entire life. And I decided that I needed something different. So I went off and I got a security job working for Seagate Technologies. I worked my way up to shift supervisor, and I ended up being in charge of a major plant of 3,000 people. I monitored the CCTV cameras. I was the interman between the top people and the stuff. I was the on speed dial with the executive secretary, should say. So whenever the CEO needed something, my phone would ring and I would have to jump and make sure that got taken care of. So after that, I got married and I transferred back to Pittsburgh they had a research development site down in the Strip District here, which eventually pulled out in 2007. And if I would have stayed with them, I would have been unemployed at the time. But then my parents talked me into going back to CCAC to get a medical degree. And I ended up becoming a registered respiratory therapist and started working with UPMC. And I've been there since and raised my whole family, and my whole life is basically raised around medical career.
Awesome, thanks. So given that broad base of experience working with diverse people from different industries and different walks of life, considering all that experience, what do you think Green Tree's biggest opportunity and biggest challenge are?
Well, the biggest thing I like about Green Tree is it's a little gem here in the South Hill. We're surrounded by monsters like Mount Lebanon, Scott, and all these other big communities, but we have everything they have to offer on a smaller scale. And like I said, I have my house here. I have more property. I pay 1/3 the taxes than my parents do in Mount Lebanon, and my property value is only about half the price of theirs. But my house is, almost 50 years newer than theirs. So it makes a whole different perspective, going through my, Aiken's a wonderful school, and they've sent all my kids been through there, and all the teachers are wonderful there. So it helps having, the good school district, having the nice community, all the little festivals and things we do, it gives you something to do with the family, go out, get out. We love to do the Halloween parade, we like to go, we're gonna be going to light up night, my son's actually gonna be performing this year because he's in the play this year, the Beauty and the Beast, so he'll be singing at the thing, so we'll all be there, and my parents will come up. So it gives you that small town feel, but we're really 5 minutes from the city of Pittsburgh. And that's what I like the best, is that I have access to the entire the west coast, east of western Pennsylvania area here from where I live. And everything's about 15 minutes away. Work's 15 minutes away, shopping's 15 minutes away, entertainment's 15 minutes away. Everything's 15 minutes away, and people don't realize that they're paying, $450,000 for a house the size of mine in Mount Lebanon, when you can buy it still here for 230. So that's a bargain, and that's what I try to do when I work with people, these nurses and things, they're looking for new homes and new communities. I say, hey, you ever hear about Green Tree? There's a house on the street. It's probably a lot less money than the one that you want to buy there, and you still utilize, a very good school district and have all the benefits of a bigger community.
Thank you.
Thanks much. Jen?
So you've mentioned living in Green Tree for almost 20 years now. Have you been a part of any of the local committees or boards of the library or any other community events that we have here? And what was your motivation for applying for this open seat?
Okay, well, first of all, I haven't really sat on any committees or anything here, but we've participated. My daughter's first job was working at the pool, and all my kids learned to swim at the pool. So I've utilized all the benefits that this community has to offer. So I could see them from the thing. We even for high school, she volunteered at the summer camp that they do for the kids every year. So I've seen it all from being a parent and participant in all these things. I haven't actually sat on the committee, and that's why I'm sitting here tonight, is because I've gotten so much from this community, and the opportunity was there. I clicked on the website to look to see when the Halloween parade was, and right there it said city council seat vacancy. And I was like, is this either an opportunity or is this something I should just click over? Because I've always said that my generation is very underrepresented in Washington. And, people like me who work with a lot of people who are in their 20s and 30s, I see how things are going and where the futures are. They're all graduating with hundreds of thousands of dollars of college debt and things. And it's like, I'm just like, someone's got to do something about this. And, with the current political situation, obviously no one was addressing any of the real issues. So I was like, well, here's my opportunity to stand up and kind of put a roadblock in some of these policies that are moving out of control in the wrong direction, and try to come to something that's more reasonable and more practical for the community and the community in general. And that was kind of what inspired me to do it. And I just looked at it. I looked at the nurse practitioner that's sitting next to me, and I said, should I do this? He's like, all right. So I Googled what you should write in a letter for intent for thing, wrote a letter here to he said, hey, that sounds good. Why don't you submit it? So I submitted, and now I'm sitting here. So this is all a new experience for me. And it's, I look forward to wherever it goes, good, bad, whatsoever, because I don't, I just kind of blindly went through the door, and I'll see where it's going.
Thanks, great. Okay, so we have 6 committees. If you are aware, there are 6 committees that every council person is on. And then there's a chair. So we have infrastructure, finance, safety, recreation, planning, and public facilities. Which of those, if you had exposure to, that you would have interest, or you see you'd have value?
Well, actually, I've actually had exposure to about 3 of those. I do work in healthcare, so public safety is obviously naturally a spot where I would feel comfortable in. Because, that's what I do. I'm dealing with the public all the time from a healthcare standpoint. I also was the security supervisor at a large major company. So I've worked on the industrial end, so I had to do safety plan checks. So there's your facilities end of the angle. And a lot of times, you know, when like we had people coming and things like that, we had to regulate traffic and things like that. And I worked with celebrities at the Mall of America, so I had to manage the security and other things. So that would have to be more in your, you know, you have to have your infrastructure and stuff. You have to know what points they could come in, what points they could leave, all those other things like that, and you know, what you could support and those things like that. So, I've oddly experienced a little bit in every one of those areas in my life. I just never really focused on one. If I would have to sit in one of the committees, I would say public safety would be a place that I would be very comfortable because I've worked from, you know, the security standpoint, the healthcare standpoint, you know, the community with the whole outbreak of the, you know, COVID-19 back then. You know, I was part of the committee at the hospital to take care of, you know, controlling the, you know, people coming in and out so that, you know, I deal with lung transplant patients that are immunocompromised. We can't have infections coming freely in and out of our ICU. We had standards that were set up to make sure that things that would do that. And working at the Mall of America as a supervisor in the foods department at the amusement park was in there. I had to be in charge of the entire thing in some sense. I've had some FEMA training and things like that where, you know, if there were a national disaster or something would happen, I mean, they're literally less than 10 miles from the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport there. And over 100,000 people transport through the Mall of America every day through the bus terminals and stuff like that. So it's in the top 10 terrorist targets in the country. And I was there through 9/11, and that was one of the things where we were on high alert. Because we were actually a target and we had to, you know, basically get everyone out of the mall safely and home so that everything could be secured during all that.
Emily,
I'm the last one. All right, I'm gonna talk about two things that are happening currently and in the future. Allegheny County has currently been discussing a raise in the property taxes, for the 2025 tax year to offset some budget needs. This tax increase is the first in many years. But without it, there are a lot of programs in the county that will have to go away. I want to know your thoughts on the county's position with this. And then in concert to that, Green Tree is currently in a contract with Waste Management through 2027. Other municipalities have faced large increases in the cost of these contracts as they negotiated new agreements in the past few years, which has forced them to drastically raise taxes in some communities. As an oncoming council member in Green Tree, how would you approach this particular upcoming?
Well, first of all, you know, I would have to look in to see how much of a tax increase is gonna be, you know. We've seen our property values double over in the last 10 years in this community alone. That some houses are probably underappraised, and a tax adjustment would probably be fit, but people aren't gonna be happy with that. No one's ever gonna be happy if you're gonna raise property taxes. I mean, my parents' property taxes in Mount Lebanon are almost $12,000 a year, and you know, mine are just around 4 or 5. So it's like, do I really want to get up to that $12,000 part? Not really, because that makes my mortgage payment go up a lot. And a lot of us, you know, don't have a lot of extra money on hand that the tax increase could, you know, cause a lot more problems. But on the other side, you know, if they're gonna increase the taxes, they're gonna have to reappraise the assessed values of your home. So your property value will, on its funny end, should go up with the tax increase. As for the waste management contract, I don't know who other providers there are in the area, but I would start getting bids right now and see, just so that when waste management does present you with the new cost of operating, we could weigh the benefits to see if we should stick with them or we should move with another provider. But waste management is an important role in the community. We don't want to have our trash building up. We want to make sure things are cleared out. Our guys that work right now are very clean. They don't throw stuff around. You know, I've seen some places where they leave the trash can thrown in the middle of the street and stuff. Our guys always put them nicely, neatly on the street. and everything like that. And then I've been through the whole recycle thing, where we used to have to truck it over to the pool to drop off our recycling, and I love having it picked up at my house now. It makes it a lot easier to recycle the product. And doing that, but like, I think Scott just changed their trash management down there because they all have borough provided trash cans now in that community. And some other communities do have borough provided trash cans, which controls your cost in a way because they're only allowed to fill that particular can place. They're not allowed to have like all the extra stuff like couches and stuff on it. Then you would have to go to Home Depot and get one of those private pickup things if you want to throw away a lot of big bulk things. But that would also affect the cost of the service that's being provided. So if Waste Management is going to continue doing trash removal as the way they are, and it's a slight increased price, that might warrant, a little extra money in their budget. But if they're going to decrease their amount that they're going to be able to haul or whatever they're going to do, then we might have to consider looking at other providers in the area to see what contracts who, because that's how you do it. You get bids and you look to see which ones are reasonable and, if you're gaining anything or losing anything with the new contract.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other questions?
Do you have any questions? Alex?
Yes, what questions do you have?
Well, the first question is, it's like, I was reading, it's like, meetings are what, first Tuesdays of the month? First Mondays of the month? Yeah, because it's like, I do work night shifts, so it's like, I have to schedule around it properly. So I would just need to know if like, as long as the council schedules are up ahead of time, that I would be able to, schedule appropriately, because obviously I'm gonna have to continue my career along with this. This is, community service thing, I'm coming in to help better my community, not necessarily, give up my job. So it's, it depends on what the responsibilities are too, it's like, I don't know how much time you guys put in to your council positions, if it's answering emails and phone calls and, and correspondence and stuff like that, that's not too bad. But if it's a really time consuming thing, I do have, family and work obligations outside of it. So I would really want to know what the actual commitment is on the, being in that position.
Mr. McGinley, I can speak to my own personal experience about it. I also have a job that, though I don't work every night, I work many evenings. I've been able to, make sure that I always have our council meeting nights free, that first Monday of the month. Our committee meetings, there are some that are set. Part of my duties, for instance, I also sit on the library board. And so that's another night that I earmark that I cannot work. The other week, and that can vary from council person to council person. I am someone that has to do all of my council work in the evenings and on the weekends. Or sometimes during my lunch, if I can take lunch break during work, on my lunch break during work, that's pretty rare. So it is about finding your own balance of things. It is a heavy lift. I mean, there is a lot. I have 2 children. We have 1 child who splits homes. So I'm often balancing custody schedules on top of my schedule. I live and die by Google Calendar. It is a heavy lift. But I will say, we have had folks who work evenings in the past. It was much more frequency than I do. But it can be done, but it is difficult.
But the council meetings are scheduled and they're published at the beginning of the year. And they are typically every Monday. I think we have a time where it is not with the Labor Day typically. And then there may be something, but it would be public notice. You would know that a year in advance. So that would be
That's fantastic.
we don't just make them. We do have, certainly, executive sessions and committee meetings, and that varies.
And
Yeah.
some of them are via Google or Zoom. They're not always in person.
Okay, that makes the better picture. I mean, I only work basically 3 nights a week anyway, so that's like if 12-hour shifts, you know, it makes it easier to just work that. So I usually have multiple days available for things, so it is definitely manageable, something that could be done. It's just a matter of, like you said, I guess, restructuring your time to fit all your committee responsibilities plus, you know, any community responsibilities that you would gain during that. But I think the reward would be worth more than, you know, the extra sacrifice of time.
Robert, I do want to thank you for your glowing description of Braintree. It was very profound. A small community with all the amenities of the larger communities for 1/3 the taxes. I really enjoyed that. Thank you. It seems like you are happy living in Braintree.
Put that on the seal.
Yes.
Yeah, you gotta thank my uncle for that.
Okay.
Yeah, he lives over on Elmhurst, on the other side there by the church.
Yeah.
And yeah, he grew up in Beachview. And when I was coming back looking for places, I was looking all over the South Hills because my family's here. And I wouldn't have picked Green Tree unless it wasn't for him. He's like, I just bought a house in Green Tree. It's great, you know, all this stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it's through. At first I thought it was Green Tree City. I had aunts that grew in Green Tree City on the other side of the road. I said, well, I don't really want to raise a family and send the kids to school. I want, you know, I want the benefits of having you know, a better school district. And then he's like, oh, no, it's on the other side of the road. It's like, you get to go to Easton Oaks. I was like, hey, they were one of my rivals in high school. I can handle that. And I've actually been very impressed with the Easton Oaks School District since my kids have gone through it. And the teachers and everything's wonderful. My daughter graduated with high honors, and she's off to college at Worcester University College in Ohio, and she's doing great. And I don't think she could have been set up that well if she didn't grow up in this community and how the resources available. I mean, our library staff has gotten books for us numerous times. Talk about your library committee. You know, it's like they do a great job of getting the stuff that you need when you need it. So we have a lot to offer in this community. And, you know, people always talk about Mount Lebanon, Scott, Upper St. Clair, Bethel Park, all these other communities that are around us. But, you know, you forget we have everything they have, and it's a lot smaller. I think they said there's only like 3,000 households in Green Tree.
Approximately over 2,000, I would say, what, 2,200.
There's 49, approximately 4,900 residents.
Yeah.
So it's a good size, and
Yeah.
as for our, like, the events that you host and everything, that we do usually have very nice turnout at all of our events, you know, Oktoberfest, the tree lighting, all these things, and these are great little things that you can take your kids to and just enjoy a night out, even a couple hours, and, you know, so it's like, I appreciate everything that we do here, and that's kind of why I'm sitting in this seat.
Good, thank you. Our past president had a big passion for saying that there is no Green Tree City, it's Green Tree for the city, so.
Well, that makes sense in a way.
There is no Green Tree City, it's a myth.
Well, I think it's actually called Banksville, I think is that the area.
Westwood, Oakwood, it's all around us.
You know,
Anything else yet?
no, that's it.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.
Just point of order, we're gonna allow public comment. Should we do that after each interview? So if people want to make a comment after,
Oh, yeah.
they don't have to say the entire time.
That's fine. If someone has to say something or a question, they can at this point in time.
For either of the first two candidates, I would suggest.
I agree to have to sit there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Hello, Michael.
Yes. Name is Mike Wozeka and reside at 108 Evandale.
Do you have any, wanna give you a little history of yourself? Give me a little, give us that.
Born and raised in Bethel Park. And moved here. Between several and many years ago, I don't know. I owned a software service company for a good 40 years. Started out near Ross Park Mall, moved down to Carnegie, went through the flood. And sold the company, but stayed on with them, and we moved into Green Tree as far as our headquarters go, down on Nobletown Road. So I have work experience with one company. 40 years worth is a long time.
Okay.
Now I'm retired and I'm looking to fill 60 hours a week somehow.
We like it.
Not all in one place.
So,
That's basically it.
okay. We will get started with our questions and we'll begin with Rob. Mr.
Yes, my question tonight is a scenario where if the Green Tree Fire Department needed a new aerial truck. The new aerial trucks are usually around maybe $1.3 million. And they last for about 30 years. Also, before I tell you this, Green Tree is doing very well financially, okay? So if the truck's $1.3 million, but we happen to have easily $1.3 million in our cash reserves. Do we pay cash for the truck, or do we finance the truck at, say, 4.29 interest rate over a long term?
Again, I think that depends, are we beholden to the fire company to purchase the equipment? That's question number one. Number two is most of the police departments and fire departments I am aware of, sometimes get grants for these things. We've dealt with my credit union down in Carnegie, we do finance some of the police vehicles. And I know that they want us payment schedule on an annual basis rather than monthly or whatever. Because that's when they get their grant money, they can pay the $30,000 lump sum. Nothing comes out of their till for that. And then we might finance it for 3 years with the annual payment, and it works out that. Now, I don't know if the grants available for fire shops would do the same thing, but that's something I've explored. With your local credit union or local bank, and if they'd be willing to finance it that way. But we really have to look at, what they could get with grant money and what we could help them with.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Move on, David.
Yeah, Michael, thanks for showing interest in the vacancy here at Regional Council. Appreciate you stepping forward and making that application. My question is just two simple parts. What do you think are Green Tree's greatest opportunities? And what do you think are greatest challenges?
The opportunities and challenges in Green Tree, is what you said. Well, I think the opportunities, I think the gentleman before me said it rather nicely, I spent a good 50 years in Bethel. So it's a large community. Moved here and you get the feeling that it's a different type of community. It's smaller. We have the amenities that we need that you can, grow a family here. And throughout the process, you have something to do. So I think there's a lot of benefits to being in this town. As far as challenges go, keeping what we have going, moving forward. I mean, the issue with the pool and all that, I'm not privy to all the information, but that's a huge expenditure. And we want to make sure that we offer that for our future generations. And the old pool lasted about 40, 50 years. That's gonna go, on for a while. So we're gonna make sure that we have the infrastructure and the amenities for the community to use over the next 20 or 30 years and not just this next year. And I think the planning commission, I think, they're supposed to be coming out with a report soon, or if they have not. Addressing those issues in the future, I think that's always a challenge.
And how can the borough leverage your skill set to take advantage of those opportunities and to address the challenges?
Well, I have done some volunteer work for being on their board of directors. For compliance officer for Southwest Community Federal Credit Union, and that's dealing with policies, regulations, and things like that. I think I can help out on that side. I'm the chairman of the ALM committee, which is asset liability management. Where do we place our funds? How do we price our products? Make sure we have enough money available for withdrawals and things like that. So on the financial side, I think my background is pretty well versed in that to be helpful in the financial side of things also.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Move on to Jen.
Given all of the, comments and strong feelings, on the poll and the decisions that the council, makes with regard to sharing information, to the community, what are some ideas that you have that we could improve upon for communication and how residents receive information for how the borough is run?
Well, I think the council is always in between a rock and a hard place. You're elected officials. You're elected to represent the constituency and probably go through hundreds of decisions a year. 99% of those, no one would raise any concerns about. There could be one or two things every year that are voted on and passed that somehow creates not an outcry, but a reaction from the citizens. And I think those are the ones that we have to really determine how do we make these decisions with more input from the community. The pool is a good example. I'm not either way. I've been to the pool 5 times since I've been here, so I'm not a heavy user of it. It's a beautiful place and it's a necessary amenity for the community. But I think more stakeholders should be involved in developing what design is best for the community as a whole. I mean, you have the people who have pass holders, you have senior citizens like me now, on fixed income that may or may not use the pool and may be worried about taxes going up. You have the swim team, they use it, you know, the classes that go on there. So somehow you have to balance all those things, but it is the council's decision on how to move forward with that. And I think once that decision is made, I think we go forward with that and do the best we can with that decision.
Thanks. And I'll address the fact we have 6 committees you may be aware of, infrastructure, finance, public safety, recreation, planning, public facilities. So every council person will be on 3 of those and sharing 1. So based on your experience, you mentioned some of it, but listening to those 6 committees, how do you, and based on your experience or exposure, what do you think you can bring to 3 of those? Or all of them?
Well, not certainly all. It's more than 60 hours there. Well, certainly the finance committee, we need my number of knowledge, my knowledge of numbers of a good part out there. When I was a young adult, I had kids, of course, and they moved on to all sports. Parks and recreation is something that I believe is very important for our youth and something that I probably get involved with. And the policy or planning commission. Right, I am in charge of the planning for the credit union on an annual basis. Certainly not as complex as what we'd be doing here, but it is something that I've had exposure to.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Ellen.
All right, we're gonna, talk about some current events. Allegheny County's been discussing a raise in property taxes for the 2025 tax year, to offset some budget needs that have been, kind of plugged up over the years,
Mhm.
to say the least. But this is the first tax increase in many years for Allegheny County. Without it, many programs in the county would cease to exist. They'd have to go away. We don't have the funding. So I want to get your opinion on the situation that we are all in as residents of the county. Also, Green Tree is currently in a long-term contract with Waste Management, which expires in 2027. A lot of other municipalities have faced large increases in the cost of waste management as they've negotiated their new agreements, which has forced them to drastically raise taxes in their communities. As an oncoming council member in Green Tree, this is something that is gonna be part of your decision making. What would your approach to this upcoming dilemma be?
Well, as far as the county taxes go, I guess it's a rather large increase. And I don't know if it's a part of the negotiation strategy where they ask for 80% and they get 40% or whatever. I think that's falling a little bit out of hand, but I think more cuts would be more palatable to the residents than anything else. As far as the garbage contract goes, I would probably look to extend it sooner rather than later if it would be possible. You know, it was a 5-year contract, I believe, I can't remember. But now is the time to start talking with them. There's also a possibility that there's other providers of refuse removal in the area. Waste management, of course, is the biggest, and they'll probably be the cheapest, but putting out bids. At that time would be what you would need to do. But I really think that if you would start talking to them now and extend it out for another 5 or 7 years, you might be able to get a better rate and just get a jump on from the other communities that may only be 3-year contracts.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. We'll move on to Shannon.
Yes, I'm so sorry I'm not able to be there in person tonight. I'm not sure if you heard earlier, but I did recently have surgery and I have not been cleared to return to work, so I'm unable to attend in person tonight, but I really appreciate you being here. So my question is about, council and as a collective body and our roles. So, council does work as a whole unit, and our role is to oversee the policies and decisions that affect Green Tree Borough. We know that this is an immense responsibility, but it is not all encompassing. And with this means that sometimes council is presented with ideas, concerns, and opinions of community members and others that we cannot change or influence. Can you share with us what you know about the reach of council and its duties, and speak to how you would respond to a request for an action or an event of something that you cannot change?
Yeah, I think that again, it's an elected official and your job is to make the policies and do planning for, I suppose, Judy to enact in all phases of the community. If someone were to come up to me with a complaint or an idea or a suggestion, even if it was out of my reach, I'm sure with working with the employees of the borough, that something could be addressed. I'm not saying I would fix things myself, but I think if a resident came to you with a concern or a complaint, it normally is over their threshold of just a normal occurrence. So I would take each and every complaint seriously. try to direct them to the correct department. It wouldn't be the council job, of course, to fix everything like that, but I think they should be aware of any issues that come up. That force a resident to complain about service or, other residents or anything in general.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? What questions do you have of us? Or about that?
I really don't have any questions on the new deal also. Like I said, I had 3 kids, I have 8 grandchildren now. But being recently retired, I'm looking to start to give back to the community, and this is the community where I live now. I think my experience over the years running a corporation, a company, being responsible for the lives of 8 or 9 people, as far as their livelihood goes, for that long of a period is a good base to start some community service. Whether on council or even just committee members, I think that I bring a lot to that. And I would look forward to working with everybody with open eyes and ears and closed mouth for a while. Glad.
Thank you for stepping.
Hmm?
Thank you for stepping up and out.
Is this the first job interview you've ever been on that you were in the same job before you?
Yeah, I'm first one.
Oh, this is my first, that side of it.
My first one, a year after I got the job, the owner sold it to the employees. And I don't know, my parents gave me a little bit of money and I put the most money in, so I was elected king. And, I grew a company from processing for 6 credit unions to over 100 in Pennsylvania. So, I'm proud of that, and then I sold the company and they screwed it up, so. That always happens.
Yeah.
Bigger's not better.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anything else?
That's it. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, we'll wait. Okay. We're a little bit early, so.
Okay. 15 minutes to breathe.
Andy Grad, 12 Terrace Drive.
So welcome back, Andy. Do you have anything you opening statement, or we just want to ask that question? Get right into the question. Sure. Okay, we'll start off with Dave.
Andy, thanks for coming back. Like I said to a previous candidate, I appreciate the courage after not being selected in the first group to come back and sit in front of us again. So, I don't have a specific question for you at this point, but is there anything, after reflecting upon the last time you were in front of us, is there anything you would want to share this year?
No, I mean, I think, just from listening to other people's interviews and just kind of considering things as a whole. And really actually reflecting on, Shannon's question about the role of council and duties. I think there is a lot of issues, a lot of situations that are brought to council that more often than not are people venting because it isn't something that necessarily falls under council's purview. But I also think that the situations and things that do fall under council's purview, I think there could be a little bit better transparency and communication as a whole. Just in terms of getting that information out to the community. And maybe encouraging the community to have more active participation as well. It's not a one-way street. Council has a job to do. Council is supposed to represent the constituency. That's also dependent on the constituency making their views known at all times, not just when it is something that is upsetting. And I know personally, I can say that because I'm guilty of it. I will freely admit, I really didn't come to any council meetings until, the issues leading up to the pool last year. So, that's something where I personally tried to take more of an effort to be involved just because I live here. I decided to move here with my wife and kids. Because I knew of Green Tree, I knew what a good area it was. I knew the school districts were good. I knew they were neighborhoods. Where we had been living in the city, it was a nice area, but it wasn't a neighborhood. It was just a collection of people. There wasn't that sense of community. And within 3 months living here, I could tell it was completely different. There is that sense of community. People are involved, people are engaged. They care about their neighbors, they care about the community. So I think making sure that that two-way street is made clear, and having a little bit better communication, both from council to the constituency, but also from the constituency to the council as well.
Thank you.
Thank you much. Move to Jen.
So can you tell us about a time, either in your professional career or your volunteer work, where you've had to consider a larger picture as opposed to just one issue when trying to make a decision that may not be popular to everybody, but you really need to take into consideration everybody within a community, or whether it's a business decision, and how to make the best decision for that, and kind of what your thought process is.
Sure. I mean, I can tell you just from my job on a daily basis. Long story or just to surmise, what I do is I work with individuals with intellectual disabilities to make sure that they have the supports and services in place for them to live as independently as possible in the community. That requires a lot of team interaction between myself, the individual, oftentimes the individual's family, and other providers that are working with that individual. So anytime you're dealing with a large group of people like that, you are going to have disagreements, you're going to have differences of opinions. As my role in my job, I am the one that needs to facilitate that and make sure that everybody feels heard and gets their ideas and their thoughts out there while still respecting the utmost choices of my individuals. So a lot of times what I run into is I have individuals that are legally adults, but have intellectual disabilities. So they have difficulty processing information, making decisions long term, but they still have that right and they still have the ability to have that decision. Oftentimes, family members don't always agree with that. So a lot of times what I end up having to do is have that discussion with a family member and say, listen, I understand you're concerned about the risk that your son or daughter may be taking right now, but there's dignity in that risk. They need to be able to sink or swim on their own while still making sure that they are safe. So allowing people to have, if you want to call it safe risks, risks that aren't necessarily going to physically harm them, but might be learning experiences, whether it be getting fired from a job or, ending a relationship with, a boyfriend, girlfriend. So just allowing people to have that dignity, dignity of risk, while still respecting everybody's opinion and everybody's thought process in the team approach. So I don't see that as honestly being any different than what council is. It's a group of like-minded individuals in the sense of everybody here cares about Green Tree and wants Green Tree to be the best place possible. But I'm sure there's multiple times that there's differences of agreements in terms of somebody's coming from this perspective, someone's coming from this perspective, and there has to be compromise, there has to be vigorous but respectful discussion. And I think that's something that, I demonstrate on a daily basis. I'm very good at doing. And I do it in my job, so, you know, something like that in council, I don't think would be very unfamiliar to me.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm up. I've been asking, candidates about, their, first of all, letting them know that we have 6 committees. You've heard me talk about this, right? Infrastructure, finance, public safety, recreation, planning, public facilities. Did hear some of your experience, but there's some other areas, other, exposure, experience you've had in any of the other areas you want to bring up that you would be of that big value, and that'd be something you would want to focus on while you're on council?
I mean, I, just 3 right off the bat that I would look at, focus on. The finance one, and I don't think that's anything specific to me. I think everybody deals with this on a daily basis in terms of their monthly budget, their household budget. I don't look at the borough budget as being much different from my household budget, aside from the actual financial dollars involved. The principles are still the same. You can't have more money going out than you have coming in terms of revenue, and it needs to be spent judiciously. So finance wise, I would look at just the way the borough is run as being a larger macrocosm of a household budget. Public safety, I'm a very active member with the fire department, so I have my ear to the ground, whether it is with fire department, with our police officers who we work with, you know, very, very often on calls. The public safety aspect would definitely be something that I would have a lot of hands-on experience with. And then just, I think recreation, I have 2 young kids that are very involved in Green Tree sports. I'm, you know, up there turning over fields and getting fields ready for kids' baseball, helping out with concession stands, coordinating all that type of stuff. So I think that's, again, something that's, I'm in the trenches in right now. I'm very hands-on, I'm very involved in. So, you know, planning and policy and things like infrastructure, I don't have a ton of experience with, but I am a very quick learner. And it's something that, I think getting out of your comfort zone and working with something that you're not familiar with, as long as you have the ability to learn, I think is good, to be able to branch out and get different opinions on something as opposed to somebody who's been in that field for 20 years and, you know, has a ton of experience.
Good, thanks, Andy. We will move to Emma.
All right, you've heard this question already 4 times. So here it goes again. Allegheny County is discussing a raise in the property tax for 2025 tax year to offset some of their budget needs. This increase is the first in many years, but without it, a lot of programs in the county will have to go up. I want to know your thoughts on this because it does affect all residents of the county. Also, Green Tree has current contract with waste management through 2027. A lot of other municipalities have faced large increases in the cost of their waste management contracts as they've negotiated new agreements in the past few years. Scott Township being one great example, and it has forced them to drastically raise the residents' taxes. As a council member on Green Tree Council, what would your approach be to this upcoming?
In terms of Allegheny County, and just at a, you know, applying that at a borough, level, I'm hesitant to ever consider raising taxes just because I know me personally, if I see a significant tax increase coming down the line, I start looking, well, maybe do I need to look elsewhere, you know, a different county, a different municipality that has more competitive, better tax rates to try and draw people in. I don't look at that any different than I do as looking at a business. You don't, at least from my experience, you don't go to the first business that offers you a contract if there are other possible options. I would want to get multiple bids or multiple options to have leverage to be able to say to somebody, you know what, hey, I don't think you should raise taxes. If you do, I think it's going to chase people out. I think we've seen that over the past probably 10 or 15 years, especially having lived in the city. I think you see a lot of people that get to the point that they say, you know what, this tax rate is too great, or, you know, school taxes are too great, or whatever the specific tax may be. And I think you see that's why areas up along the county line between Allegheny and Butler County, Cranberry being an example, would be one where the population's grown significantly because people, tend to flee where that tax rate is lower. Same thing would be evident down along the county line with Washington County as well. That doesn't mean that tax rates don't always, that's a reality of the situation, is you have to have enough income coming in to match your expenditures. But I would also want to look at the programs that, like you mentioned, may be affected and see what's the usage of those programs? How important are they? Are they programs that could be not necessarily cut, but the money from those programs better allocated or spent in a better manner? And I come at that from a unique perspective, just given my job. I technically work for a hospital, but I work very closely hand in hand with Allegheny County Department of Human Services in coordinating Medicare dollars for people with intellectual disabilities who live in the community. So part of my job is to make sure that money is spent appropriately and correctly and stays under budget. So just, again, kind of running it like a household and making sure that, if in my house, if we were coming up short every month and I need to look at cutting out Netflix, that's a reality. I would cut Netflix before I would drop down to one view. So I think it's weighing those different options and cutting out things that maybe you don't always use to try and keep your tax rates reasonable so that you're not chasing out people to municipalities with lower tax rates. So that's the Allegheny County part. And then what was the other?
Waste management.
The waste management.
Yeah.
So just like I mentioned about other businesses, if I'm getting a new roof put on my house, unless there's only one roofing company that I know of, I'm going to get multiple bids from multiple companies and use those as leverage against the other companies. To me, that is just smart business on my end as a consumer. I would do the same thing with waste management, or with the garbage contract. You get tentative bids roughly from, 2 or 3 other companies that provide similar or same service. And then you can take it to the current provider and say, listen, this is what we have from these companies. They're willing to offer us X, Y, and Z. We are already with you. We'd like to keep that relationship, but we also need to make sure that this is financially beneficial to both of us. How can you meet our needs? And if they can't, then you have other alternatives. You're not just sitting with one line in the water, and if that doesn't pan out, well, you're stuck. And then you're in a situation like Scott Township where they had to raise rates significantly to accommodate that new contract.
Thank you. We will move to Shannon. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I know that you understand why I'm not there tonight. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person again. I do wanna, you talked a little bit about my question in your opening statement, but I want to circle back to this idea that council is a collective body. And that we do have some limitations. You know that as a resident of Green Tree, we pay this. Schwartz was just discussing taxes. We do pay a variety of different taxes, and they go to many different things. One of these things that come up very often when I am talking about issues and concerns is that sometimes a true to real life example that I have encountered in multiple times in my years being on council is that I will have residents come and talk to me or reach out and say, hey, someone told me that council is going to pay for the park behind Beacon. Why hasn't that been done yet? That is a real life thing that happens very often. And we often can hear multiple things in our community about that, about similar things where they are coming to us with a genuine concern. You and I both have children that go to that school. We are actively involved in many different parts of our community, and that is a real thing. But how do you respond, and how do you talk, as someone you yourself have said, I really appreciate that you have taken an active interest and, you're getting more involved. Those are all great things. how do you talk to someone about the differences between what council does and what other facets of their tax dollars are going towards? And can you explain how you understand the limits between what council oversees and what other bodies oversee?
Sure, I mean, I think just going based off of my job, what I do on a daily basis. People don't like when they don't feel heard. And that could be, you know, in my job, that could be council talking with the constituency, vice versa. And I think when you address people's concerns. And it's difficult because there are only so many hours in the day, but when you address people's concerns from the perspective of, hey, I'm not just your council member, I'm your neighbor. You know, like you said, our kids go to the same school. My kids go to this, you know, this school with your kids, or my kids play baseball with your kids. We're in this community together. We know each other. We may not agree on everything. But if we're coming at it from, we're two neighbors in the same community and we're trying to get this problem resolved. And I want to hear what you have to say and take it into consideration. I think that allows people to feel like they are part of the process and not just, you know, yelling and, you know, their concerns falling on deaf ears. I think that having that discussion with somebody and saying, hey, listen, you know, I hear your concerns. I have a lot of the same concerns as you. They're valid. Can I tell you, you know, let me tell you exactly what council is capable of doing in that situation. Or if I don't know what council's capable of doing in that situation, let me check and get back to you. I'll put it to the other council members and see, is this something that we have purview of or not? And if it's not, then you go back to that person, you say, hey, listen, this is something that's out of our purview. This is who it would go to. Whether you need to talk to somebody, you know, whether it's Ms. Miller or it's something, you know, like Emily brought up with the tax raises being kicked around by Allegheny County. If it's something that they need to go talk to their county representative about, then you point them in that direction. And, you know, you offer, hey, if you get nowhere with them, come back to me. We'll brainstorm, we'll figure out ideas on how we would need to do that. But I deal with that on a daily basis. You know, somebody comes to me with a problem, hey, can you help me with this part of Medicare or this part of Medicaid? And, you know, I have to say, hey, listen, this part is mine. Anything over here is out of my area, my jurisdiction. This is who you need to go talk to have that issue resolved or have that discussion. I know personally, if I'm going through something like that, if somebody comes to me and gives me the honest answer and lays it out clearly and concisely, even if they can't help me, I'm still appreciative and I can say, hey, listen, you know what? You tried to do everything you could, but it's out of your purview. You gave me who I need to go talk to about that. Instead of, well, you know what, that's not my department. And I know I try to, I don't use that phrase. I don't like that phrase in my daily job. I would not use that phrase if I were on council. I would say, listen, and that's not to say that anybody on council does, but it would be about making that person feel heard so that they know that it's not just, oh, this person's giving me another gripe or another complaint. That person pays taxes too. They have the right to express that view and that concern. And they have the right to be heard and know that what they're saying isn't just falling by the wayside.
Thank you.
Very good. Ron,
Thank you. Scenario, Braintree Borough has $25 million cash in the bank. This municipal building's 60 years old and a wall is falling apart. It needs expanding. We need to spend 25 million for expansion. Would you finance that project for 30 years or would you pay that project off in the cash we have, since we have the cash?
I would consider the interest rate to see what you would be looking at, but personally, I would probably try and attack it with a bit of a hybrid. I would try to, if you can, put a significant amount down to maybe drop that interest rate even better and then pay off the other portion of it. My concern with paying in that situation, all 25 million upfront would be then do we leave ourselves open to, you know, another issue comes up unforeseen in the borough and we're cash poor because we put that all down on definitely a need, but something that, maybe could have been come out with a, a mixture of financing and putting some down rather than dropping it all right then and there. I would handle something within my home, a large purchase the same way, whether it would be, a new roof, a second home, a new vehicle. I think you look at the climate around you, if it's decent interest rates and you can, make it work, then you make it work. If the interest rates are astronomical and you're gonna get beaten over the head by it, then, you might have to take your medicine and pay for it upfront. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else have any other questions? For Andy? Andy, you have any other questions back at us? Any other issues?
No.
Anything you wanna say?
No, I mean, I think, just the communication piece and the transparency of it. I know that was something that had come up multiple times, whether it's tonight or in other meetings. I know there's been, gentleman who's been more than willing to volunteer his time for that. I think looking at other, looking outside the box and looking at other options, whether it's the app, whether it's the website, text messages, just trying to get out of our same line of thinking and attack that problem from a different angle, I think would be beneficial for council. Just again, to give the public that transparency and that communication, I think would go a long way to relieve a lot of that acrimony and tension that sometimes shows up.
Thank you very much. Thanks again for
I-
being
I-
here.
Christine has-
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have a question,
Yeah.
and I have a couple.
Please.
Mr. Tintori talked about all the different, infrastructure, rec board, whatever. So we have zoning and hearing board, we have planning commission, we have recreation board. You know what each of those boards do? You know what all the recreation board does? You know what planning and zoning are responsible for? Or zoning is responsible for and planning.
I would think the zoning and planning would be in terms of whether new property is being built within the borough or addition being put on. Private residences or, the borough building here. The rec program, I would think would not just be limited to Green Tree Athletics, it would be summer rec, the pool, things like that. And what was the third one? No, okay. But no, I mean, I will freely admit on those two, I do not know all that is entailed in it. But that is something that, I can tell you when I joined the fire department, I didn't know everything that was entailed, but I was going in with an open mind, willing to learn. And that's how I address most issues in my life, is if you're willing to put in the time and effort and learn what it is, I think most of the time you can figure that stuff out.
So if, say you don't get on council, would you be willing to be a resident that would show up at a planning commission meeting or zoning hearing board meeting?
Yeah, I mean, if that was something that there was an open spot for it.
But I mean, as a resident, you do start coming to council meetings. Would you come to those meetings as a resident to listen and to see what they actually do? Thank you.
Thanks again, Andy. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you for coming. You can just have seats and you can just state your name and address, just so.
Hi, I'm Deborah Demi, live at 1114 Oriole Drive.
And, have a opening statement, you wanna wait for later on? Just before we get started, we do wanna go into questions. Go ahead.
A little about me. So I grew up in the South Hills in Mount Lebanon. I've been living in Green Tree for the last 8 years. I live there with my husband, our 2 young kids. One of whom is at Aiken, one who will be 2 in 2 weeks. And our 2 cats, me, Joe, and Maserati. You know, forever around here. I have a background in marketing. I have a master's from Simon Business School at the University of Rochester with a concentration in marketing. I've been working primarily in the healthcare sector, doing marketing strategy. I've done some market research, PR, some other pieces of that. Yeah, I'm really focused on community. I think that our community, not just Greentree, but, all facets of our community, from Greentree, from school, from your neighborhood, your street, all the way on up to our country and the whole world. It's really important that we work together as a society. What's good for one person is usually good for everyone. I love the idea of working together to really lift everyone up, in Greentree and kind of in our community at large.
Thanks. So we will get started with questions, and first up is Jen.
Okay, thank you for coming. So given your background in marketing and given the known concerns around the communication challenges and transparency that have really been brought to the forefront here in the last few months, what suggestions do you have for council improving communication within the community? And how would you recommend reaching the different diverse populations that we have here
Sure.
to include the most amount of people?
Right, what I see as a resident, and we get a mailed quarterly bulletin that I read through and I mark pages and then usually it's thrown in the recycling bin and I forget about. I have the app, I get the push notifications, I'm on the website, there seems to be a pretty fractured communication strategy. And what I have found, in my professional life is that you need kind of one solid brand positioning, for better terminology. You need to be able to have concise, clear messaging that's going out in any number of channels. The problem with a lot of different channels, and reaching lots of different communities is that that'll cost a lot of money. Doing things digitally might be cheaper. Email lists, whether that's a, weekly, email update or something like that, that might come a little bit more frequently than the quarterly posted bulletin is great. But again, you're going to leave out people who aren't digitally engaged, who aren't connected necessarily with the community. So I think you really need to look at, and I should have looked up before I came, but didn't have the chance, was dealing with a messy bedtime. Of the breakdown of demographics of Greentree, we certainly don't want to leave out our people who are not digitally engaged. Again, just stereotyping, that's going to be an older population who are very involved in the community, who have a lot to say, who have that history with where they are and who feel very passionately about the community. And so we want to make sure that we're reaching them. And that it's two-way, that we're not just sending out information, but that we're able to receive information back. Again, that's going to be a lot easier digitally, to some extent. If this, most recent election proved, it's that I will, stop any amount of text message blasts that come to my phone. So I think that there's a mix that we need to find of digital, non-digital, the different channels, and reaching everyone in a two-dimensional way that allows them to be heard. I know that I don't always come to a ton of council meetings. It's really easy to stay home in your sweatpants, when you don't have to be here. So in lieu of that, and we have a really engaged population that are reaching out by email, but that also are, maybe posting to social media, that are going other places, and the messaging from council and to council is not always the same. So I think that picking a few solid channels that will hit a lot of demographics that allow for feedback from the community is the best way to go about that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So my question is basically about our committees. And Mr. Short just mentioned it, I brought it up if you're listening. We do have 6 committees. And I'll repeat them. Because it's infrastructure, it is finance, public safety, recreation, planning, and public facilities. So based on that, what type of exposure, experience have you had in these topics? Things that you may be able to provide value. You certainly mentioned on the market side, but there's some other issues, other things, and what, based on your experience and exposure, do you think you can add value?
Professionally, the two that kind of stand out are recreation and public facilities, just having that kind of background in running events and looking at what that for different companies and kind of what that might look like. So there's kind of an immediate sort of comfort there, but in terms of infrastructure, something that I'm really passionate about, I spent 9 years working for a company that supported medically complex and technology dependent children aged birth through 21. And something that came up time and time and time again for these children, for these families, is accessibility. So something like infrastructure is really important to me, making sure that our community is accessible to all. And that means more than just people who may utilize a wheelchair or a mobility aid, but there's all sorts of disabilities that we don't see and that are so important to make sure from an infrastructure standpoint that we're supporting. So that actually is something that stood out to me that I'd be interested in.
Okay. So next up is Emily.
I'm gonna talk about current events right now. Allegheny County is currently discussing a raise in property taxes for the 2025 tax year to offset some budgetary needs that have been built in the past that may not be built going forward. This tax increase is the first tax increase in many years. But without it, a lot of programs within the county will not be able to continue. So I'd like to know your thoughts about a countywide tax increase, which will affect the residents of Braintree, not their Braintree taxes, but their county taxes. And then also with that in mind, Braintree is currently in a contract with Waste Management through 2027. A lot of other municipalities have faced large increases in the cost of waste management as they've negotiated their new agreements, which has also forced them to drastically raise taxes within their communities to offset that. As a council member on Braintree Council in the next year or so, this is an issue that will be coming up. What would your approach be to look at this dilemma for, the future?
So unfortunately, taxes exist. Nobody likes paying them. We all hate paying them. I hate paying them. However, I like having services. I like having a fire department. I like having roads that are paved. I like having my trash picked up. All of those things are unfortunately dependent on income coming in from somewhere that we can pay for. I think getting out in front of the waste management contract, I know that there's only kind of so many players in that space in the area. So I don't know what the relationship looks like, but it doesn't sound like we would be a one-off in that situation. And I think unfortunately, a tax increase is something that is a potential. It's not going to be popular. It's going to piss people off. It's going to annoy everyone sitting in here, even those who, in the future may or might not vote for it. But if we want the services that we provide to our community, if we want playgrounds for our kids, if we want a pool, if we want mowed grass and leaves picked up, I think that is something that we would need to consider very strongly. Again, nobody wants to do that. I think that looking at all of the services that are paid for, being really strict with the budget is really important. But things cost money, services cost money. Having a community that we want to live in, that our kids feel safe in, that has, the ability to have crosswalks and all of those things, is dependent on money coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you. We move on to Shannon.
Yes, thank you. I'm really sorry that I can't be there in person tonight. I had surgery last week and I have not been cleared to return to work. So I am unfortunately not able to attend tonight's meeting in person, but I appreciate you being here with us this evening. The question I have been asking folks is about council and our role. So council is a collective body and our role is to oversee the policies and decisions that affect Braintree Borough. We know this is an immense responsibility, but it is not all encompassing. And with this means that sometimes council is presented with issues, concerns, and opinions of community members and others that we cannot change or that we might not even have influence over. Can you share what you know about the reach of council and its duties and speak how you would respond to a request made for an action on something that you cannot change?
So as I understand it, the role of local government is local governance, maintaining our, community's solvency, managing budgets, making sure infrastructure is covered, economic development, again, doing what we can to make sure that our community is a good place to live in, that we have all of our budgets covered, all of those ducks in a row. Also working with, some other organizations like the school board, other local governments, that, neighbor us, that, we have shared borders with and things like that. So I believe in pretty open communication. I am an open book. One of the best compliments I received was from a care manager at Children's Hospital, who came to me with a question, and said, I know that you will not know the answer to this because it was a clinical question and you do not want me in charge of your healthcare decisions. She said, but I've worked with you long enough and I trust that you will help me get to the person who knows the answer. And that I think is so important, in being willing to talk to different people, talk to different organizations, talk to different communities. I live a few houses away from the Pittsburgh City line. It's really important that there is that open communication there, and that we're helping people get to the correct person. I don't think answering a question just to answer the question, if you're gonna be wrong, helps anyone. I believe that we can do more when we are able to make those connections, and bridge those gaps and help our, constituents bridge those gaps as well.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Ron?
Yes, same scenario. Braintree currently has approximately $25 million in cash reserves. However, the borough building is falling apart and it needs work on. Borough building should last, though, if we do the work, another 60, 80 years in the future. So my question tonight would be, if you were a council person, would you take the $25 million now that we have in the bank and just pay for the renovations in the new building? Or would you finance it over time to allow future generations to pay their share of the asset over time? What are your thoughts?
My instinct is to finance it, at least partially, as someone who signed a contract today to get a new roof. Life happens, things come up when you, own a home, when you're, taking part in this building, to not have the resources to fix something else that might come up or to address another issue that might come up, would be more concerning to me. So I would look into financing at least part of it, to make sure that there is cash on hand, to deal with anything else that might come up.
Thank you. Move on to Dave.
Deborah, thanks for coming tonight and submitting your application for the vacancy. I appreciate your marketing expertise and the advice you're giving us to better inform the residents and to be more transparent. This question is going to be difficult, but in the spirit of transparency, I think it's important to ask. So in the 2021 election, you ran for a council seat and did not receive enough votes from residents to win. Given this outcome, why should council consider you for this vacancy when the residents previously chose not to elect you?
It's a great question. If I recall, it was about 60 votes, that separated you and I. So it was pretty close. Turnout tends to be pretty low, in odd-year elections, especially when there's not larger campaigns at play. I joined that campaign late. That's fine. We'll call it. I was filling a vacancy of someone who had dropped out after the primary, and I wanted to do what I could to support my community then, just as I would like to do now. In those 3 years, I've had some life changes. I had a new baby. I got a new job. I've taken on so much more and learned so much more. I actually think that I'm a stronger candidate now than I was then. But Yeah, I believe in second chances. I believe in continuing to want to serve my community. I think it says something that I am willing to sit up here and put myself out there again, and how much I believe in our community and what we could do together and how I'd like to support that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
You know, could I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
Only because I noticed you have to have a master's in marketing degree. And I was just wondering, over the years, I've heard two different sides of this question. As council, should we spend money to promote, to bring in businesses? As far as, should Green Tree pay our money, taxpayers' money to put a billboard on, say, by the airport? Bring your business to Green Tree. We have free parking, or, like, what's your thoughts? Because I've heard both ways. One, we shouldn't be spending our taxpayer money to bring in business. We should let, the economy do that. Or on the other hand, hey, bring in more business, make Green Tree thrive with your marketing experience. What's your thought?
Another good question. Whether or not an out of home, like a billboard's the way to go, probably not. And I know that was just an example, but I would want to first, and this goes back to communication. I think it's important that we have two-way communication with the people living in Green Tree and also the businesses here. I'd love to get a roundtable of local businesses, things that made them choose Green Tree and why they continue to choose Green Tree. And understand from them what the opportunities are, what the weaknesses are, what they feel would help them be better, and what they think would help bring in additional businesses. I'd love to see the Green Tree corridor thriving the way Dormont's really turned things around. I grew up walking distance from Beverly Road and Mount Lebanon, something like that, that really tends to draw in people, and how we could support that better. Again, that strategy is probably going to be pretty multifaceted. I think communication out and in is going to be key. So I would probably start with some market research there. Quantitative, qualitative, whatever data we can get to make a data-driven decision. But I would imagine that there are ways to do that for cheaper. Again, digital tends to be relatively cheap depending on who's designing it and how it's going out. So there are ways to connect with the right people without spending a ton of money. Again, you can really trial some things, see what works, and then launch that strategy out. You can do some A/B testing, you can do whatever you need to do to really start to bring businesses in and go from there. But I would start with talking to our current local businesses and understanding what's working, what's not working, what their wish list is, and really take that into consideration, because they're gonna know better than I do at this point, what would encourage additional businesses to come in.
Thank you.
Ms. Short, your question.
Yes, since the 2021 election and being put up on Borough, what have you done in these last 4 years to maybe make you a better person up there? Have you come to any of these meetings or just watched it online? Do you know what it's entailed? You already said you have young children, and I know being here for a long time, sitting here every month, that these seats up here, they're a lot of work. So you already say you have young children. So in the 4 years that you didn't get elected, and now you're being interviewed for a filling position, what makes you qualified, and what have you done in this borough to get you up onto that seat?
Sure, it's a really good question. I mean, my kids are my life, they do take up time, I understand that. As I said, my daughter will be 2. She is getting to a point where she is more independent. I have not come to a lot of meetings in those times. There have been times, and I've said this to plenty of people, probably some of them are sitting up there, that, to be honest, I'm glad I didn't get it 3 years ago because of the life change that I went through having a second child, who now is 2. Those first you know, that first year, those first 2 years are a lot. So, and now that I'm kind of past that initial stage, I do feel very confident in my time. This is not a decision I made lightly. My, you know, I sent my resume in probably the last possible minute because I was having conversations with my family, with my husband, with my parents who provide childcare, with all of those people to make sure that they supported me in this decision to run. So just to address that off the top. You know, since then, I have been working at Giant Eagle as the director of pharmacy marketing and partnerships, doing a lot in the community, looking at, you know, vaccine clinics and how to support the community from a retail pharmacy perspective, as well as some other things. I have been working with, in a small capacity, COFFEE, the Keystone Oaks Foundation for Educational Excellence. I have, you know, been helping out with events at the school. I'm actually helping out with the PFO night of the races this Saturday, if anyone's not bought their tickets and would like to. So I am trying to do what I can to better the community. Again, I foresee me continuing to have the ability to continue to do more, to continue to learn, to continue to support, and I'm very interested in doing that.
And
Anybody else?
another question, there's that, government class that was recommended, highly recommended.
Local Government Academy.
Yeah, but it's not mandatory.
Well, we, it's not mandatory, but we would pay for it and we encourage everybody's taking it.
So what does that entail? I'm asking these guys, so you can answer.
Thank you. And we had talked about that again for a year, but I'm sure it's changed.
What sort of
Somewhat.
commitment is it?
Pardon me?
What sort of commitment is that?
It's about a 3-month, once,
It's once, is
it's,
it twice a month?
yeah,
I did it.
once every other week, something like that.
It's basically from like January to April when they do it, and it's a Saturday after, like Saturday morning, like you go in at 9, you're there until like noon, or there till like 2 and then you're done.
They used to do a lot of weeknights, but that became real difficult, especially in the winter, so we've been trying to limit that to Saturday. So it's been a little bit easier getting people.
Get into your schedule.
Yeah, I can absolutely make that work. I also have a fair amount of connections both locally. I know the tax collector in Scott County and some other local places. I have a friend who's state senator in Nebraska. I have like weird friends, places that I would feel confident going to and asking for help in governing, and you know what their opinion is. I have kind of a people that I can go speak to about that to really help me make sure that I am bringing that up to this.
Deborah, would you like to say anything in closing or any questions from us?
I don't know where we are in time. I know it's
You're good.
a late night. And I know some of you are newer out there, but some of you are not. So I'd love to know like is there something that you've done on council that you're the most proud of?
I'm sorry, I did not hear the very tail end of that question. Could it please be repeated?
Yes, I asked if there's something on council that the collective you, royal you, done that you're the most proud of, like something for the community that, you feel has really made your time on council worth it.
I'll go first. Been involved in a lot of grant funding. We've been aggressive over the years. When I first got on, I had connections to the Allegheny County Department of Development. And we couldn't get any sidewalk money, even though they had us on their list. So being able to use the contacts, help get through that, we were able to get that money. And bring that relationship I had with a lot of economic development things to the borough. So that's been really critical to use the contacts and the experience to help the borough, at least from my side.
I'll go next. I'm proud of a lot of the stuff that we as a collective have done. I am proud that we have been able to give our borough staff raises and cost of living increases in times when not all organizations and all government communities have been able to do that. I'm proud that, we have amazing parks that we are dedicated to keeping beautiful. Not just through, the amazing works of our public works and all of their landscaping, but like actually committing to having having projects done in the parks, and to ensure that they are safe. We have had communities around us who had to close parks, and who have had to make some really difficult decisions, because, they put things off. And, we aren't and we don't, and I think that, considering that how small of a community we actually are compared to our neighboring communities, and really throughout Allegheny County, I think it's, really a true, accomplishment that we've been able to do both of those things consistently time after time.
Bill?
Yeah, I think earning the trust of the residents by listening and being good stewards of their tax dollars, makes me feel good about serving the community.
Well, you know, I would think most people in this room would say, I was gonna say, it is a thing called Oktoberfest that I created. However, I'm gonna shock some people by saying the thing I'm most proud of is, well, it's been a long time now, but at one point, they were trying to close Aiken Elementary School and demolish it and get rid of it. And I was put on a task force where I myself, Dr. Paul Kirsch, who has passed away, and Amy Cesario, the three of us represented Greentree to help to try to save our elementary school. We had 45 days and we had meeting after meeting. We put hours and hours in. We came up with a 27-page document that showed why we should not close Aiken School. We also engaged the community. We had petitions, we had people attending the meetings. And somehow, some way, we were able to change the decision of Keystone Oaks School Board to not close our elementary school. And when you look back on it now, could you imagine if Aiken was not there? And I mean, there was other people involved, but the three of us, along with the help of Adele Benassi, former councilwoman, she was really helpful, but we were, to this day, Aiken School's there because we took action and we changed the decision that Keystone Oaks was going to make.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've certainly heard that story, but I'm very glad Ethan is there. We were looking at houses that schools certainly impacted our decisions.
I think this, I'll just close with, once again, that everybody's been on this council has been pretty passionate about Greentree. We don't always agree, we don't know, but we do agree, we always agree on this Greentree. We're trying to help Borough. Everybody's done everything they could to do that. You know, there's big politics, but everything indeed is local, and it's really critical to get more people involved. So that's what we try to do. Anything else?
No, that was great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody who has, once again, thrown their hat in. We really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you again. Thank you.